we wanted to talk about missing and murdered Indigenous women, um, the over-sexualization of Native women, and there was one more thing, and I don't remember what it was.
We stopped when we were talking about Native youth suicide.
Yeah, Native youth suicide. Okay.
We stopped with that because because the last part I had on that was my story with,
Yeah.
and my daughter was awake watching me.
Yes, that is not appropriate for that level of children's ears. So, why don't we go ahead? I'm going to put my hands up like this for my editing cues. Why don't we go ahead and talk about Native youth and suicide and the rate at which it is happening? I know we touched a little bit on it a little earlier, and how certain reservations have had to declare a state of emergency. Um, but you said that you yourself are affected by it, or have been affected by it.
So, right now, my oldest daughter is 9,
Mm-hmm.
which is the same age that I was the first time I tried to commit suicide.
Yeah.
So, for me, with my experience with mental health, I cut long before I could remember. So, about as far back as 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And had to do with a lot of physical abuse that was going along at home that was happening that my mom didn't know about because I didn't say anything to her. And she got me out of the house. I started living with my grandparents because she didn't want anything to happen to me. I
Yeah.
didn't know at the time. My stepdad was actually beating her too.
Oh
And
my.
she didn't know that he was beating me.
Yeah.
So she took me out to save me. And I ended up with my grandparents, which was awesome for not being um, physically abused anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a lot of mental and emotional abuse growing up. Most of it was unintended, but
Yeah.
it was a side effect of the fact that drinking and alcohol and drugs can be a very, very big problem for Native American people.
Yeah.
And when I was 9, I took a bunch of Tylenol
Mm-hmm.
because I really didn't think it was going to get any better
Yeah.
and that everyone would just be better off without me
Mm-hmm.
because they wouldn't have to deal with me being in their face and all this other stuff that was going on in my head. And no one noticed. They honestly thought I just got, like, I had a cold or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of years later, when I was 11, I did it again.
Yeah.
And which I did the same thing, except for that time I did a bigger bottle.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened. They just thought that I was sick and that I was sleeping.
That is
And
awful.
most people didn't know about that until I was probably 23.
Yeah.
Um, with the problems that we had with my brother finding out about his sickness when he
Mm-hmm.
passed away, it happened to be a little after I'd actually promised him that I wouldn't try to kill myself
Yeah.
because he was worried because he had found um, my scars and saw that some of them were not quite scars yet.
Yeah.
And so that was really hard for me going through that and trying to keep my promise that I wouldn't try to do the thing that I had done before.
And how old was your brother when he died?
3.5. I spent my 16th birthday at his wake and we buried him the day after.
I know we talked a little bit about the availability and quality of medical care, so I wanted to connect that for our audience who might otherwise not put that together. That is
Yeah,
good. it does affect people immediately and in their homes as soon as they're born.
We got a lot of, oh, maybe it's a stomach virus. Oh, maybe it's this. Oh, maybe it's this. And they would give him antibiotics, and they wouldn't really like check. They weren't checking his blood and checking, oh, maybe it's something not normal. And he was a little bit sick here and there, but for that month before, he was just getting worse and worse, constantly crying that his stomach hurt, and my mom couldn't find out why. And he was having a hard time eating and drinking, and we finally ended up at a hospital in Sioux City, and my mom got one of the doctors to check him because something is wrong, and everyone's telling me that it's nothing.
Yeah.
And we found out it was bad, and they sent us to the Children's Hospital Omaha, and found out he was already in stage 4 cancer, and there was nothing they could do except for make him feel better while he passed away.
Oh, God. And so I just wanted to highlight that because he was a Native youth, and these problems do affect Native youth, and that is why, as you were saying, I think you've said off camera multiple times that Native youth, they don't feel like things are going to improve, and these things that are affecting them won't get better. I think is what you were telling me. It contributes a lot to the suicide rate. Another reason you think that there's really nothing that's going to get better, I know you've pointed out to me, is that when they grow up, there's a chance that their girlfriends, their wives, their sisters, their mothers will just disappear or be murdered, which is the same thing in a lot of cases.
Yes, the missing, murdered indigenous women has been a problem that's just been getting worse and worse for years. Not just in Canada, but in the US as well.
Yeah. The US and Canada, we don't really put those issues together because we like to think that Canada is super nice, but they're not. They're terrible, and they only recently recognized their indigenous groups as humans, which is something that we haven't done in America with our native Hawaiians. But that is not what we're talking about. That is just something I recently learned.
Yeah, actually, I think it was last week. Utah just got some stuff going to actually start getting a database together in order to help with all of the missing and murdered indigenous women, because there's so many of them that they have reported, and even then they have a hard time being able to put it all together with the fact that there's different tribes, and that some of these people are coming up and they're disappearing from different places. And a lot of times when sometimes they are finding people, they're getting mismarked, or misidentified when it comes to their race. And if they're not sure what they are, a lot of times they get put with the just like the default race.
Yeah, they get put in morgues and hospitals when they have no identification, and they're marked down. A lot of times, if they can't tell or they're really white passing, they just get put down as white, and nobody then from the tribes is notified. They don't even know what tribe that they should be looking for because they have them marked down as white.
Yeah, and a lot of times they don't actually mark down whether or not they've been murdered or have the cause of death.
That is upsetting. And a lot of these, I know you mentioned, don't even get investigated.
Yeah, and there are so many cops out there and precincts and whatever, all of the different people who are supposed to be looking for these women, and so many of them just don't put in the effort, or they don't care, or they don't feel like it's worth it, or they're just like, we have so much other stuff to do, we'll get to it eventually, and they just never do. And you ever look at these statistics specifically, and there are a lot of exactly how little people are actually being looked for,
Mm-hmm.
you just blow your mind when you know how many are that they have uh, reported. And the thing is, the ones who are reported, that's not all of them, because Native Americans and indigenous people have a history of not trusting the police and the authorities, and a lot of times
Good
with what's
God, I wonder
happening,
why.
and a lot of times they won't report it, and they're, since for the most part they're on their own on their reservations, and a lot of the police and stuff that they have there, they don't have the resources
Yeah.
to go through what they need to do for all of the people that are there. And some of the response times are bad, because you can call 911 on some reservations and it can take not only hours, but they may not come till the next day.
That is, oh God, that does
And
not.
by then, it can be too late.
What's the point in calling an emergency line when they won't show up until the emergency is over? So another thing we were talking about, we connected the dots a little bit on the last interview. Where are you going?
I'm right here. I'm filling
Oh.
up my water.
We touched a little bit about some of these topics earlier. I just wanted to put the final piece together. We were talking about how non-native people making native art is a problem, not only financially and culturally, but because of the way they depict indigenous women, especially. They are over sexualized and like they're basically a caricature of themselves. And we do this not only out of a lack of understanding of what women actually wore, but it's a hypersexualization thing, and including costumes. But Native women are more likely to be sexually assaulted, develop a serious disease, a life-threatening disease, go missing, or be murdered. Rather, all of those, greater chance of doing those than living to 35.
Great news for me. That's like 5 years away.
Right. But the over sexualization of Native women in media and artwork is, you can directly pretty much connect the dots there, because Native women, when they are assaulted, it's like a vast, larger number than almost always non-Native men.
Yeah, and most of the time, if you Google Native women,
Mm-hmm.
most of the time you're going to pull up a non-Native woman who is in some sort of skimpy, fake, extremely fake, pretend Indian costume with
Yeah.
fake ass feathers and fringe and boobs and ass hanging out.
Yeah.
Or, chest and butt hanging out.
We can say boobs and ass. This isn't an adult interview.
Okay. Um, and and a lot of people think it's okay, and they're like, oh, it's okay, I am pretending to be this one person, da da da. No, it's not, because that is not how Native American women dress.
Mm-hmm.
Not ever have they ever dressed that way.
Yeah.
Not only would we not use those type of fabrics, we would not wear that little clothing. Our clothing has meaning a lot of times, and it's actually sacred, and we're not costumes. It's part of our culture.
Oh.
And for and it's for other people, well, for us and other people, a lot of times it starts with little kids.
Yeah.
Little kids see it and they think that that's okay because the adults are doing it. Or there's little kids who are watching Pocahontas and they see the dress that she wears, and that this woman falls in love with this man and she's going to give up all of this stuff. And no, that was a little girl, not a woman. Pocahontas was a little girl.
Yes. She was so little. Oh God.
Like, at most, she was probably 12.
I've heard her pitched more around 10, 11. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Like at the most you could possibly think she would be at 11 or 12. But she was probably closer to my oldest daughter's age.
That's a big yikes for me.
And, you know, they sell Indian princess costumes
Mm-hmm.
all of the time. And so, like, even when I take my daughter out and we're going and we're looking at costumes and she's seeing this and she's just like, oh, hey, it's me. And then we have to talk to her about that's not you.
Ooh.
You don't, you know, we don't wear feathers that way. This
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have any meaning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talk about how it's okay to like that movie,
Mm-hmm.
but she also knows that that's not how we're seen because her moms and her aunts and her grandmothers don't dress that way.
Yeah.
Her ancestors didn't dress that way.
Yeah.
And she knows that. And
Good.
what?
Oh, I said no, that's good.
Okay. And it's getting to be a problem because when you go out into the world and people see you and you're dressed like a normal person,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people, and it's usually non-native white men, not non. It's usually
Big shocker.
non-native men. Sorry.
I'm so shocked. Just say white men. It's okay.
Honestly,
We
yeah,
can
it is.
call a spade a spade.
Okay, so and when they see you, they don't see a person. They see that character, that super skimpy, slutty, sexy Indian princess.
Let's clarify for the audience. Are there any native princesses?
The only native princess you will find is a woman or a young woman, because we do have young women who do this, who have won that title dancing at a powwow.
Okay. So it's
And
not like
there's a very specific things that our young women have to do in order to even get to the point where I want to be one of these. I want to be the powwow princess for this powwow or that powwow. You have to know your language. You have to get good grades. You have to have good attendance.
mm-hmm.
And you have to know what it is that you're dancing about.
Yeah.
Because they don't just, you know, run out there and it's a beauty pageant. It's not that. The judges dance. The judges watch the way you dance because the way you dance is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
The way your fringe moves or the way your jingles move, the way your dress, how low it goes, whether or not it touches the grass, because
mm-hmm.
that has great meaning for the creator to know that you're there, to be able to feel you when your fringe touches the ground. And what was I saying? Okay, so but they have to know all of these things when they're competing and they're going to all of their powwows, and some of them are dancing for contest money, some of them are dancing for other things. But when you're going to powwow and you're dancing and your goal is to be not, it wouldn't be considered a powwow princess either, or just a native princess. But when you're doing this, if you get that title, you represent your people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a good person, and because everyone is going to look at you. You are going to represent your people when you're doing this.
Yeah.
So you're going to wear your traditional clothes and you're going to do your dance your style, because there are many different styles of dance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the title of princess isn't just something like we think of in European monarchies where you're born into it and it's a title of privilege.
No.
And it's something you earn in this case.
Yes. And, you know, just because, you know, the tribes that have chiefs their daughters aren't going to be an Indian princess.
Yeah.
I hear all the time that, oh, my grandmother was an so-and-so kind of Indian princess.
A Cherokee
Or
princess.
I hear that one a lot. Or this, or Blackfoot, or this other one, and this other one, and or some Navajo princess. Like, we don't have princesses. What was like, you're probably not even talking about a Native American. And if you are, you're probably talking about someone who was raped.
Yeah.
More
My
often than
family.
not, that's how blood got around, because that was one way that they killed the Indian.
Yes, we are
He is
talking about
telling
Native
Tom.
babies. I must be heard. I must put my voice in the narrative. Yes, baby, you keep talking.
She has quite strong opinions. She loves Indian music.
It is so cool, but I literally just feel weird about it now because it's just like every time I hear one come up on like my new age radio, I have to stop and go, okay, does this actually mean anything, or was this made by some white person with a drum? And then I feel weird, so I have to like change it.
Okay, so I'll have to send you some stuff later, but yes, we do have. There are a bunch of songs and things that are sacred. They have a specific meaning. They're about something specific, and the whole thing means something.
Yeah.
But then there are also some songs that are just for fun. My mom had a recording from years ago when we were little, and they're singing about Ninja Turtles.
That's amazing. Please send that to me right now. I'm going to need that immediately.
Like it's on a cassette tape.
Oh, that's
I'd have to take those out and get them transferred, but honestly, those are awesome. My mom used to play those for us all the time because my little brother would not sleep to anything but what he called Heya music. So any of our
so
well, when you're like 3,
hey, you know what? It's not like I was saying it.
You know, he
You
was
guys
3
can
and that
call
was
it.
what he said.
You guys can call it whatever you want. That is not even my table.
And, you know, that's what he called it because he was itty bitty. My daughter, when she was itty bitty, that's what she called it. That's not what she calls it now. She calls it power music now.
That is still hilarious. Okay.